Hello and welcome to Talking Aussie Books, a new weekly podcast shining a spotlight on Australian fiction. My name is Claudine Tinellis. As a writer and avid reader, I love chatting about books. And in this podcast, I'll chat to authors, publishers and readers, giving you, dear listener, insight into what's hot on the Australian fiction scene. So if you're looking for your next book recommendation or just want to know more about Aussie fiction writers, this podcast is for you. Grab yourself a cuppa, sit back and enjoy. Last year, one Australian kids' book published by a small indie publishing house on the New South Wales South Coast scaled the Australian bestsellers list to reach number 9, putting it in the company of Australian literary heavyweights like Jane Harper, Leanne Moriarty and Marcus Zusak. POWman, Unleash the Hero Within, authored by Dave Tabain and Nadia Worland, was a runaway success. Beautifully illustrated by Shane Ogilvie, it was written to create awareness around bullying, an insidious issue of concern not only in Australia but around the world. The book helped to start those difficult conversations around bullying and how to turn negative experiences into positive ones. This year, the team have reunited to produce another book in the POWman series. POWman, Discover the Strength Within, is just about to hit shelves across Australia. And here to talk to me about the POWman series and Frankie's experiences in Book 2 is co-author Nadia Worland. Welcome, Nadia. It's wonderful to have you on the podcast today.
It's great to be able to do this. Thank you very much for having me.
So, Nadia, tell me, what inspired the POWman series and how did you come to be involved?
So I had always grown up with a love of books, reading with my grandparents, with my parents, and now reading with my own children, is that the power of the written word. So I became involved in this because working in the school system, there is bullying. And what we need to do is work from that to empower our kids. So I got involved through Harbour Publishing, which is a family-run publishing house. And they saw in me the ability to change these experiences into amazing books for kids. The project is important to me because we need kids to have the best information, make the best choices to become the best they can. And that's what POWman shows them how to do through his book. And Frankie does it in Book 2. Now,
the statistics on bullying in Australia are frankly quite staggering. I read that 1 in 4 Australians between 14 and 25 have been bullied. 52% of those occurs in schools, 25% online, and the remaining in the workplace. These are truly awful figures. Why do you believe this is such a widespread issue?
When we were growing up, or when I was growing up, there was no social media. You got a break from those bullies. So if you were at school with them, at least when you left school at 3:30, you could go home. But I think now it's such a constant thing, and I think we need to make sure that there are consequences for actions for that and move forward to empower our kids as well.
Now, I've been very lucky to have been able to read both POWman books 1 and 2, but for those who haven't heard about POWman before, can you tell us a little bit about Book 1 and then the follow-up in Book 2?
Yes, certainly can. So one is about, we introduced Dave, Stu and Bray, and they are particularly Stu is having a hard time at school because he is a little bit different. He's a bit left of centre. And Dave then becomes great mates with him and helps him come up with a power plan to deal with bullies. So the power plan is not the usual, go and tell the teacher and the teacher says go away and play somewhere else. This actually is real. It gives them opportunities to practice using the power plan, to put it into place so that when they're in that situation, or even when they're in a bystander situation, they can come and help the other kids that need it. Book 2 delves more into the female side schooling. We meet Frankie, who's a karate kid who loves her karate. And she realises when she moves to the new school that it's going to be hard, but she didn't realise how hard it was going to be. So this book goes a lot into social media and how to report that, work with that. It goes into that girls bullied by the way of isolating them rather than physical. It's more common that girls are isolating them, saying let's all wear this colour on Wednesday and then nobody else does. So that's the sort of thing that happens to Frankie in Book 2. But the main thing also to hold on to is that Frankie and Dave have used the power plan to improve things for themselves and other kids in that situation.
As I mentioned in my introduction, Book 1 was very well received. In fact, it was a phenomenal success. What is it about this book, do you think, that makes it appealing to kids, their parents and to teachers?
One of the biggest things what it is, it's real. So the experiences come from Dave and also my background in education, that it's real. It's the conversation starter. It's not too heavy. You can read it with basically any age child and get them informed from that age. I just think the authenticness of it is why people are latching onto it. I think that Dave is a very passionate, outgoing guy who loves POWman and he's out there promoting our product. But I also think the words that we've put in there are super important, and that's also why it's going so well, because it just covers so many different things that we can do.
That's interesting that you say that, because I wanted to ask you, how much of the reaction and response to POWman do you think has been due to Dave's own experiences of bullying?
Stories obviously are embellished from Dave's own story, but they are a basis there. And I think people like the realness of that. And they can see that even though Dave was having trouble, like he was having trouble learning to read, so he'd got picked on and all these sort of things. But now they're looking out and seeing a very successful, person who has overcome bullying to get where they want to go. And he sort of brings that POWman character to life to even make it better than we could have ever imagined.
Yes, indeed. Now, I wanted to ask you, did you go out to schools and talk to kids about bullying and POWman?
Well, I did a little bit. Dave's been doing a bit. And then in 2020, that's what we'll be looking at doing more of. It's an amazing book with an amazing message. And the more we can get it into schools, helping these kids that need it, the better. So, yeah, Dave and I will be doing more of those visits next year. The books also come with teacher notes for years 1 to 6, all linked to the Australian curriculum, and an easy way to incorporate bullying and prevention into current classroom practices.
Have you had any feedback from kids about specific instances of bullying or other experiences which have sparked a conversation or intervention as such?
Yeah, so we've had so many messages, texts, emails, inboxes in regard to this. And if you look on any of our pages, you see the comments from parents and kids on there about how much they love it. The kids at my school think it's pretty cool that their teacher wrote the book as well. They give me good feedback, but I'm not sure how valid that would be. So, yeah, the feedback's been great. We haven't had one bad review. So of all the reviews that we've had of POWman 1, online, everywhere else, has all been positive.
Fantastic. Now, you're a mother of 2 children. What has your own children's response to the book been?
They are so proud of their mum.
I love that.
Yeah. Barnaby and Eleanor, both of, they see bullying. They've, everyone sees it, has been part of it. So for them, I think it was awesome for them to see that Mum was helping other kids in a different way. Anywhere we go and they ask a question, what do you do? They pop up and go, Mum's an author.
I love that. That is so wonderful. They should be proud of their mum, because this is a really important issue, and I love the work that you're doing, bringing this issue and some solutions to light for a lot of kids and parents out there who are struggling with it.
It's the struggle that these kids are going through all the time. When we spoke about at Harbour with Gary, as long as we changed one kid's life, we were going to be happy with POWman. And we've obviously done that 1,000 times over, but just getting that, is really important.
That's marvellous. Now, I understand that you aren't going to just be able to change Australian kids' lives, but also some kids' lives overseas, because the book has been picked up internationally.
It has.
Yeah, that's so exciting. So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
So Harbour Publishing went over to Frankfurt Book Fair last October, and they took POWman as one of the books that they were really proud of and wanted to share with the world. And from those meetings that Harbour had was that Spain and Portugal have now picked up our book, and they will be printed in 2 different languages in March next year, which is just unbelievably good as well. That, we're not only going to change lives here, we're going to change lives over there as well.
Now, one of the lines I like most from book 1 was when Dave says sometimes he wishes that phones weren't allowed in schools. And that really touched me, because I feel like this is a really big issue. And book 2 touches on this subject again when, as you mentioned, Frankie's classmates take photos of her at school and post them on social media sites. What do you think about phones in schools, and do they perpetrate and encourage online bullying?
So I think from a personal point of view, that the kids are so connected to their devices, but they don't need that phone at school. Like, they have access to the front office who can call parents. But I also think if you've got phones at school, it's really easy to keep that bullying and make those poor decisions because it's got easy access to it. If kids need them, I get it for travelling, but it doesn't need to be in their hands at school. If they do need it, it needs to be handed in the morning, picked up in the afternoon, because I just think all-time access to social media, that sort of thing, it just gives them free rein to keep it going. At least if we can stop it in the school for, 6 hours, we might have a better chance of changing the way people think.
Now, apart from your own experiences and knowledge, what other research did you have to do when writing these books?
So other than 20 years of teaching, and it was very new. Like, I had to really get inside what it meant for social media, Facebook, and obviously having 2 kids in the age group that we're looking at and lots of nieces and nephews, I had a lot to draw from there. But I think the biggest thing was the change in bullying from when we were a kid to now. That was a huge thing I had to look at for the social media side of it.
There was a term in the books that I hadn't come across before. The term was smash lighting. Can you tell me a little bit about this and how important it was for you to address this issue in the books?
Yep. So we had a conversation around gaslighting, which is a term that's used in the adult world for being undermined. But we thought that's really quite a hard concept and a word for the kids to understand. So after brainstorming and thinking about it, that's when we came up with smash lighting. So smash lighting is mean words, actions that smash away at your self-esteem, smash your confidence. It's making fun of you behind your back, telling fibs about you, and making you believe you are not good at anything. So we wanted that term for kids to use, and that's where smash lighting comes through. And smash lighting is something that is kept in the POWman in books 2 and 3.
I'd like to focus a little bit on the language and the structure of the books for a moment. Now, as you mentioned earlier, both books are incredibly easy to read, and I think, particularly for the age group that you're targeting. But particularly with book 2, much of the story and the messages are conveyed in text messages between Frankie and her cousin Dave. So I wanted to ask you, how important do you think it was to structure the story in this way?
So I think it was important because that is the reality of it at the moment for our kids in schools. They're at a younger age where they're exposed to the phones and messaging. And we felt it's important that, yes, it's happening, but we weaved through the story with Frankie on how to deal with that positively and how to report. So even though we are exposing the kids to these text messages in the book that they may or may not have come across already, we're giving them the tools for later on. This is how you work through it. If somebody's doing this or you need help there, that's what happens through book 2 as well.
In book 2 and Frankie's experiences, her experiences with the bullies is one I know happens a lot. We talked about smash lighting. We talked about the fact that girls often isolate as a way of bullying. It seems to be an age-old tactic used by bullies when someone is good at something. Here in Australia, it's called the tall poppy syndrome, usually reserved for high-profile people like singers, actors, politicians, etc. But it's also not an unknown phenomenon in schools, is it?
No, not at all. It's very well known. Kids will cut the tall poppy down, and it is something that is real. And it may be even that you're good at something, very small, that you will still get picked on. And even if you're not the tall poppy, but you're nearly the tall poppy, then you can cop it as well for just being good at what you are. What we've shown is the resilience of Frankie in book 2 about if that is happening, if this tall poppy syndrome is happening, how else can you deal with it?
It occurred to me that this is a phenomenon that's more likely to happen amongst girls than boys. Do you think that's the case?
Yes, I think that is the case. I think girls are slightly more aware of what's going on around them, and boys tend to be a little bit more, or a little bit less self-aware. So I think they do cut each other down.
It's such a shame. And I think in this day and age, I mean, we talk a lot, particularly amongst women, about building each other up. But it seems to me that the tendency not to starts quite early.
So I think girls do definitely do that. And I'm not sure whether it's because they're feeling insecure whether they actually really want to be like that person but is too scared to ask for help. But sometimes it is just someone being purely nasty. And I think as girls, you need to really make as we call it in our family, your tribe. Make your tribe strong. So surround yourself with strong women, strong girls that you know will have your back and will help you rise up rather than pull you down.
Now, Nadia, I wanted to ask you, are there other books in the POWman series in the pipeline?
Absolutely, there is. So book 2 will hit our shelves very, very soon. Book 3 and 4 will be out next year, and then book 5 in 2021.
Nadia, if any of my listeners out there are experiencing bullying themselves or their kids are being bullied, what would be your best advice to them?
So make sure that when you're speaking to the child, that there is no blame that they have caused this behaviour of somebody else. Let your child know that it is somebody else's reaction and behaviour. It's not theirs. If it's happening at school, the first thing is to contact the school. First and foremost, contact the school, teacher, principal, get them involved because they don't want to see it in their school either. So if it's happening there, I would go into the schools. There is plenty of support through the education system and websites that are for anti-bullying that they can access. They can email or text as well to have that support network around them.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. If listeners wanted to connect with you or to learn more about these wonderful books, where can they find you?
Okay, so I have a webpage, which is nadiaworland.com, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram as Nadia Worland Author, and my email is nwauthor@yahoo.com.
Now, POWman Unleash the Hero Within and POWman Discover the Strength Within will both be available in good bookstores just in time for Christmas. They'd make an excellent gift for a primary school reader in your life. Nadia, it's been my absolute pleasure to talk to you today. I wish you every success with these innovative and timely books. Thank you for joining me on Talking Aussie Books.
Thank you so much for having me and helping share our very, very important message. It's much appreciated. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Listeners, as always, for a chance to get your hands on not one but 2 signed copies of these books, head over to my Instagram or Facebook account and follow the directions to enter the draw to win. Well, that's a wrap, folks. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review on iTunes or drop me a line via my Instagram at Claudine Tenellis or on my webpage claudinetennellis.com. Thanks for listening. Until next time, happy reading.